Hey guys, it's Joskar, and I'm back with another Final Fantasy XIV guide for you. This time we'll be tackling Eden's Gate Resurrection Savage, also known as E1S or Eden's Gate 1 Savage. Place out waymarks to determine positioning. DPS will take inner cardinals, tanks and healers will take cardinals. Some mechanics will alter positioning. Rotate clockwise as required. Northeast through south will be our east group, and the remaining players will be our west group. First up, we have Eden's Gravity, which is a standard room-wide AoE. Vice and Virtue targets 4 DPS with puddles to spread. Place these clockwise from your intercardinal position. These puddles apply a slow debuff and hit for massive damage. Get out of them quickly. Get into the boss's hitbox to avoid getting hit by Eden's Flare, a giant donut AoE. The next Vice and Virtue will be cast. This time it places 2 Tank Buster laser beams on the tanks. Spread these at an angle away from the group. Spear of Paradise is a Tank Buster that hits twice and requires a tank swap. Vice and Virtue will be cast again. This time it targets the healers and should be passed to the tanks. It causes a bleeding debuff. Eden Prime will jump to the corner and cast a room-wide AoE, Pure Light. Dodge behind Eden Prime to avoid this. Next up is Delta Attack. To handle Delta Attack, spread to the inner cardinals. Ranged/healers will be on the outside, while melee/tanks will be on the inside. Eden Prime will also place a giant AoE in the middle when doing this, so make sure to be out of max melee range. Next up, Eden Prime will cast Dimensional Shift in Paradise Lost. Dimensional Shift will cause a room-wide AoE to go off. Afterwards, Paradise Lost will cause party members to drop orange AoEs. These AoEs can be baited by the people who are furthest away. We send our ranged and healers outside to their inner cardinals to bait them in a circle. Once the last puddle goes off and before the pure beam cast goes off, spread to your white orb positions to blast them away from the rest of the group. Eden Prime will then jump to the corner again and cast Pure Light again, and then jump into the center and cast Dimensional Shift again to do more raid-wide AoE damage. Eden Prime will cast Fragger Maximus, which will change the room, and do massive raid-wide AoE damage. Run to the south side of the arena and pop some group mitigation/shielding to reduce this damage. 2 Guardians of Paradise will appear. They will cast Mana Boost, which must be interrupted. They will also cast Mana Burst, which is a room-wide AoE. Their Tank Busters will cleave as well. Stack them in the center and angle them slightly away from each other so the group can DPS them down, while the tanks don't get overlapping damage. After this, the phase change will be triggered. Looks like Team Rocket's blasting off again! After the phase change, Eden Prime will cast Paradise Regained, which will swap the mechanics out to their alternate versions. Next, Eden Prime casts Vice and Virtue, which targets both tanks. This will need to be split with 3 group members each. Split and stack these east and west to mitigate the damage. The person in the front gets a massive physical debuff. This would be detrimental to tanks, so we place them in the back to make sure they're safe. Vice and Virtue will be cast again. This time you should spread the puddles to your inner cardinal spot and soak them with a partner. Next up will be Delta Attack In, which will cast a large ice AoE around the outside of the arena. Make sure to be close to the boss. Tanks will make a Y shape at the north, and the rest of the group will stack at the south. Tanks will be hit with AoE Tank Busters during this mechanic. Vice and Virtue will place markers on 2 healers. These should be transferred to the DPS. Immediately after, the Tank Buster Spear of Paradise will require a tank swap. Dimensional Shift will place meteors on the ground that need to be DPS'd and white orbs that need to be baited. Ranged and healers will bait the AoE lines. The person closest to each orb will bait the laser in the direction they are standing. Look at the arrows. You want to bait it so that the lasers spin away from the center. Once the orange AoE line appears on the ground, get back into the middle to avoid getting hit. Eden Prime will then get back into the corner and cast Pure Light. Be behind the boss to be safe. Then it'll jump back into the center and cast Dimensional Shift, the room-wide AoE, signaling a shift back to the original mechanics. Eden Prime will follow this with Eden's Gravity, another room-wide AoE. Eden's Flare will require you to get into Eden Prime's hitbox. Vice and Virtue will be cast again and will fire lasers at both tanks. Spread these away from each other and the group. Spear of Paradise will Tank Buster the tanks. Make sure to tank swap this. Vice and Virtue will target the DPS again. It is important to spread these puddles in the cardinal directions because Delta Attack Out will be next, and we need the corners to be free. Delta Attack Out will happen again. Tanks and melee will be closer to the boss, ranged will be further. Make sure to be out of max melee range when the ice AoE goes off. Vice and Virtue will put markers on 2 players that need to be passed to the tanks before they go off. Next up, Dimensional Shift will bring out the meteors and can be handled similarly to before. Ranged and healers should bait the AoEs away from the middle while DPSing the meteors down. Eden Prime will then teleport to the corner and do Pure Light again. Be behind him to be safe. Eden Prime will then teleport to the center and do a room-wide damage with Dimensional Shift. Eden's Gravity is another room-wide AoE. Eden's Flare will require the group to stand in the boss's hitbox. Paradise Regained will signal mechanics change again. Vice and Virtue will place 2 line AoEs to be split east-west. Make sure to put the tanks in the back. Vice and Virtue will put markers on DPS that need to be stacked with a buddy. Delta Attack In will require the group to make the Y shape again, with the tanks making the Y shape at the north and the group stacked at the south. Fragger Maximus will serve as enrage for the fight. DPS the boss down before Fragger Maximus goes down and you will win the fight. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate it. This is the first of 4 videos for Savage in Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. I'll be releasing more as my party completes them. Thank you for watching. Until next time.